Welcome to the next episode of the Austin Bar Association's Council of Firsts. I'm your host, Amanda Arriaga, First Latina Bar President. This podcast is made possible by the Texas Bar Foundation. In today's episode, we talk to Daniella Deseta Lyttle, judge of the 261st District Court. Judge Deseta Lyttle is the first Latina and first female veteran to preside over this court. She's a graduate of Michigan State University School of Law and is a member of the Texas Bar College. She began her career in public service as an Army infantry combat medic for 8 years before ultimately attending law school and becoming the owner and managing partner of Lyttle Law Firm, PLLC. Judge Deseta Lyttle has been named a super lawyer, Austin Monthly top attorney, and received the Travis County Women Lawyers Association Award for contribution to the minority community in 2019. She currently serves on the board of St. Louis House, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the success of women and their children moving from homelessness to healthy, independent lives. I'm honored to have with us today Judge Daniella Deseta Lyttle. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited for us to talk about your journey and your life story. And I want to start at the beginning. You began your career as an Army medic, and that doesn't seem like a very traditional path to becoming a lawyer or a judge. So how did you decide to join the Army and take that path?
Okay. I got to give you a little background to answer that question. But both of my parents immigrated to this country many, many years ago. And to be a little more precise about why this came about, when my mother was about 26 years old in South America, she was looking to change careers and looking at the paper, because back then people looked for jobs on paper, on the newspaper ads, and noticed that almost every job that she wanted to apply for said that you needed to be a woman that was 25 years old or younger. And it was perfectly legal to do that. There was no recourse for a woman that was 26 or 27 seeing those ads. And my mother, I think, had a epiphany, you want to call it, or an awakening, or just a really strong realization that that was going to be the future for her daughters. And she wanted to change that. And she wanted to make sure that that me and my sister, I have a younger sister, didn't ever face that. And my parents immigrated here, like many families do, looking for opportunities and looking for improvement in their lives. And my mother instilled in me at a very young age a sense of deep love and appreciation for this country. And I grew up here. I grew up in Miami and moved to Austin now about 25 years ago, but my elementary school years were in Miami. I went through elementary school and middle school and high school, and it was time for graduation, and I was thinking about what to do with my life, whether I was going to go straight to college or work, and I went to a career fair in high school, and I'll never forget this because there were all these different tables of different career choices, and there were universities and all kinds of people representing, and I ran into the military table. Let's call it the military table. And we had the Air Force represented, the Navy represented, the Army represented, the Marines were there, and I was instantly attracted to the idea of service, of public service. And it was, I visited a couple of tables. I remember visiting a couple of tables and getting to that table and just feeling like, this is what I need to do. I just felt like it would be an amazing challenge and responsibility. And I just have always felt a great sense of commitment and gratefulness for the opportunities that I've had and that my parents have been given. And I felt a calling to join the military. I mean, I was very young and right out of high school. And I took the test. It was, I don't know what it's called now, but back then it was called the ASVAB test. And there were quite a few options of things that I was offered to do. But my heart was really set on helping people, and I knew that I wanted to help and that I liked medicine. I thought I was going to go into physical therapy, or I was going to be a doctor, or I was thinking in that vein. And when the representative for the Army said, "What about medic?" I can't tell you exactly what it was other than my gut feeling telling me that's exactly what you want to do. And that is how the military came into my life. I was 17 years old. I required parental consent to be able to join because I was not of age of majority yet. And so your question was, how did you end up there? And that's the story. I think it really at the core of it is a deep love and appreciation for this country that my mom instilled in me from a young age. And then seeing an opportunity to give back and to serve was something that was in me from a very young age. And that's the choice I made. And I joined an infantry unit. So I was an infantry combat medic. I went to basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and my military occupational specialty was in Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, and that's where my journey began.
I feel like this career fair you went to, the military tables must have done such a great marketing job for you to fall in love with that. And now you should do commercials for joining the military. Because it sounds like you found home by visiting the tables, and now you have dedicated your life to giving back. And so if no one is calling you to make you a recruiter and put you on TV for the U.S. Army, I will.
Should, right?
I'm going to make a call. I'm going to make a call and see who can get you in front of them, because that's I'm not sure I have heard that story in that way. Typically, folks I know who are veterans, I went to Texas A&M. There's a history of the family was in the military, and so.
Not for me.
I love this.
Although my father was always interested in the military, but certainly I didn't have a father or a grandfather that had served in the U.S. Army. So that was the first.
That's amazing. So you go from infantry combat medic, helping people on the field, I assume, wounded, fixing them in real time. And then at some point you decide, well, now I want to be a lawyer, which seems like a pivot.
Yeah.
So how did you make that choice?
So I joined the military, as I mentioned, at a very, very young age, and I had not gone to college yet. And as I grew as a professional and started learning about what I was a pre-med major originally in college. And one day, my mother had to go. She needed a lawyer for her immigration case. My mother did. And I'll never forget it. It was, I had never met a lawyer before. I didn't really know what lawyers did at the time. And this woman walks in and looked at my mother and said, I understand, my mom told her story about, her history and what she needed, and that she needed her help. And this woman said to my mom, I'm going to make this happen for you. I can help you. This is what you need to do. This is how you can achieve this goal. And my mom had this instant look of relief. And I remember looking at this woman and thinking, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. And I always wanted to help people, right? I knew that was something I wanted to do, but I didn't really know which way I was going to go because I didn't have lawyers in my family. I was the first lawyer, first one to go to college, first one to join the Army. And my sister is younger, so I didn't have older siblings to look up to. But I saw that feeling. I saw my mother's face. I saw the lawyer's confidence and the peace that she imparted to my mom. And I knew that I wanted to be in that role. And the older I got and the more I looked into it and the more I did internships to find out what I wanted to do, the more clear it was to me that I wanted to help people like my family, and that being a lawyer would allow me to do that.
Is that why you decided to have your own firm for a time?
Yes. So I decided to have my firm because when I graduated from law school, I started working for a small law firm up north here in Austin. And they shied away from helping folks who were not able to pay the full price for the hourly fees that lawyers charged. And they didn't have any set up for payment plans. They didn't have anything that would be based on scale. And I didn't think that they leveraged the higher paying jobs that they had to be able to gain some time to give back to the community. There wasn't a sense of that in that environment. And I thought, if I had my own business and I was a business owner, I would dedicate at least 20% of my time to pro bono causes, or low bono, as we call it, low cost, and give people the opportunities to do payment plans. And I think that it's totally doable if you are able to manage a full firm that has a full docket. There's no reason why that can't be done. And I thought, well, at the time, I couldn't find a law firm that was doing it. So I decided I would do it myself. And so that's how that came about.
I love that. And I've never heard this term low bono.
Yes.
But I love that. And we should encourage people, if they're able, if they can't do pro bono, at least do low bono.
Yes. So I believe that our creed and our responsibilities as lawyers, and I thought this from the very beginning when I got licensed, is that we have a responsibility to our community, to give back to our community, and to help those that are not able to afford legal fees. And I had my own system, similar to what the Austin Bar Association does, or Lawyer Referral Service does. I had my own system for, dedicating about 20% of the docket to people that were committed to their case, and the only obstacle they had was money. And being someone that has faced those obstacles for the majority of my young life, I was pretty determined to do what I could to take that away, for that not to be an obstacle for somebody that was seeking justice in a court of law. And not just in Travis County, but all over Central Texas. My practice was every county that I can get to within an hour to an hour and a half, I went to.
So you are the owner of a law firm, doing well, helping the community, and then you make what I assume must be a difficult choice of, well, I'm going to run for judge.
Yeah.
Why did you decide you wanted to do that?
And that was a difficult and a very thoughtful process for me and for my family. I felt that I had gotten to a point in my career that I had done, extended myself and done as much as I could creatively to expand access to justice. And I started looking around at all the courts that I visited, and I started thinking about what I could add to that system. And I saw, I think there's always a need within the judicial system to have diversity of thought, diversity of lived experiences, diversity of geographic locations. Everything that is diverse is a healthy, creates a healthy ecosystem within the judicial system. And I saw gaps as a lawyer, that I thought that the next step for me in my development of, giving back and public service was for me to consider being a judge. And at the time, I had no idea what it entailed. It is a huge undertaking, but my motivation was really to add to a lot of the greatness that we already have in our judicial system, to add a new component.
So you run for judge because you see gaps and you can offer some solutions to those gaps.
Yes.
And now you've been on the bench for almost a year.
Yeah.
What have you learned that was a surprise since you've been on the bench? Have you been able to address those gaps yet?
I think that I have, and it's a work in progress because I've been a judge now for 11 months. So I'm still what's considered fairly new. I'll say that there weren't a lot of surprises for me in getting ready to take the bench, because as soon as I won my district court seat, I went right into the courthouse and donated my time to learn from as many judges that were there as possible. Any judge that would let me come and see them and shadow them, I was there. And so by the time I took the bench, there weren't a lot of surprises on what could come up. And there wasn't like the learning curve I worked hard to reduce that learning curve so that I would feel confident and ready on day one, which was really the case for me. The surprise for me was the volume of the work varies, and particularly for any particular case, you may have 1,000 pages or 5,000 pages or just 3 pages, right? Depending on the case. And so I think the biggest, if I had to say what the learning curve has been, is how to condense large amounts of information into pieces that are digestible and for me to process and be able to make a ruling. Because I do think it's really important for judges to dispense justice timely and not to keep litigants waiting for results or for rulings. And so I was determined to be a judge that was going to be ready, and that was ready to rule on whatever issue came before me. And so I would say that has been the biggest learning curve is, okay, how do you take a lot of information and how do you dissect it? How do you get what you need so that you can properly apply the law? And that's the learning curve that I think is going to happen for me and for any judge for as long as we are there, because nobody should feel like they know the answers to everything. There's always something new to learn. So that's been the challenge, I would say.
Well, and based on what you just said, I assume you were a great student in law school and that you knew to study ahead of time. You probably knew you were supposed to read before the first day of class because you donated your time essentially to study how to be a judge so that you were prepared on the first day.
It's funny that you say that, because I took a class before law school on how to study and how to properly prepare.
Exactly.
And in fact, I met some really great friends there, but there was such a class for you to prepare for the type of rigorous studies that would be required in school. And I did take that class, and it was helpful, and I did graduate in the top 10% of my class, and I was a preparer. And I definitely would say that's a feature that I have. I like to plan ahead. I like to think ahead. I like to read ahead, and it's really nerdy, but yes.
That's great.
Me.
That class did a great job, and I could tell immediately that you must have done that, because some folks might have walked in and said, well, I was elected, so I know what to do,
right?
Because they chose me to do it,
right?
So well done to you. And I love this idea that should be universal of dispense justice timely, because there is a lot that happens that are affecting real people.
Yes.
And so any second that they have to wait impacts a real person and a real family.
Yes. And any judge will tell you that there are matters that require additional research after you have heard it. But for the most part, I make the best effort that I can to give people that peace of mind, because many folks, by the time they come to court, they just want they want guidance. They want to know what's going to happen with their lives. And so for me, when I was a litigator and going to all these courts, that was huge for me. The client had so much anxiety waiting for what the judge was going to decide. And so I have never forgotten that feeling of what that feels like. And so I make that a priority. And it just so happens that my personality fits it, because that's just how I do things. So.
Do you think that your background of being an immigrant and a veteran gives you a different perspective on the bench?
Absolutely. So people, sometimes friends or colleagues, will say, well, what's it like to be in court and to be a judge? And there's 11 other judges there. There's 12 district judges at this time in Travis County. And I always say, do you remember the Power Rangers? The Power Rangers, each one had a different superpower, right? But together they were able to accomplish all kinds of things. So the judiciary is very much like that. Each judge really has a unique background or a unique superpower. Let's just call it a superpower, because in many ways it is. And it works well together. And so I have something to add. All the other judges have something to add. But I have something to add that's unique, being somebody who's had a vastly different lived experience than others, and having been in the military, and my outlook in life and how I approach family law issues and problem solving and conflicts is going to be different. And it adds, I think, to the judiciary in a way that, again, creates a more balanced and fair ecosystem for the judiciary to do what we have to do, which is apply Texas law accurately, precisely, and timely.
Well, and I would imagine if there was a problem in your court, you could also step in and give CPR or the Heimlich. And so you have that unique perspective that if I pass out in your courtroom, you know how to fix it.
I know how to fix it. I can fix it. I can definitely do something about it. And if you have any other problem, I'm sure I can call one of my colleagues and ask them to step in for something else, depending on what it is. And so I really thought, I really do think that, each judge brings their own set of characteristics and backgrounds that makes for a more cohesive judiciary. And so nobody walks into in an ideal world, nobody walks into a courtroom or a space where there's judges and feels like I'm not understood, or I don't fit in, or I don't belong. I think access to justice means that. That's what it means to me. So,
what organizations have meant the most to you professionally or personally?
So there's several. I love American Gateways. American Gateways helps immigrants in the community, particularly people who are seeking asylum. I was always inspired by that organization and how many people across the spectrum in our community actually donate and actually donate their time, treasure, and efforts to that organization to help those that are the most vulnerable in our community. So I really love American Gateways, and St. Louis is an organization that I'm very impressed by. I am a director for St. Louis. I'm on the board of directors, and the goal for that organization is to help women who are single mothers transition out of homelessness or avoid homelessness and avoid foster care and CPS and all of those things that happen when people don't have access to suitable housing. They help women thrive and succeed on their own and be able to take control of their lives. And so I really love the program at St. Louis. I also it'd be wrong for me to forget or not mention Travis County Women Lawyers Association that has had such a huge impact in my life. Just being able to be part of an organization where there's so many other women that are thriving and successful and so generous and giving of their time is life-changing. I just really love TCWLA, and of course the mamas. And I think that's the acronym. The MAMA is Mother Attorney Mentoring Association. I have 2 children, 2 boys, and when they were little and I was a young practicing attorney, just being able to talk to other moms who are going through the same thing of juggling career and children was just invaluable to me. And so I'm very thankful to those 4 organizations.
Well, we'll put information about all of these organizations in the podcast notes so that folks know how to reach out and become members or donate or attend their events, whichever ones they may be. And so I have my last question for you. What advice would you give to lawyers who want to follow in your footsteps?
Okay. So there were 2 thoughts in my mind about this, and it's something I've thought about a lot through the years. And I think that the first one is, and it's a quote, and then I'll explain why I think it's so critical, but obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Those words have always meant a lot to me. Is you have a goal and there's obstacles to get there, and there's a lot of things that can push you in different directions, and at the end all of it is a distraction. And so focusing on your goal and removing everything else is I think pretty critical, because it's easy to have a goal, then somebody comes along in your life or something happens in your life and then you go in a different direction, you go down a different street and you forget yourself and you forget your goal and you forgot what your purpose was. And so for me, it's always been important to visualize what I'm wanting, what I'm dreaming about, and what my goal is, and to ignore everything else. So I really like that particular quote. And then the other one that I like that is particularly fitting for me as someone that has a pretty unique background is think for yourself. Everyone has a unique picture of how things work and function, and yours is as valuable as anyone's. I think particularly as a Latina, a woman of color, I have faced in my life different experiences where you're made to believe that somehow your perspective is not as important as somebody else's, or it's not as valued, or it's diminished. And I think we need to remember that that's not the case, is that we're each unique, and that is a very valuable thing to have. And it's perfectly normal and okay. And I think we need to say that more often, to think for yourself, that everyone has a unique picture of how things function, and you are valuable, you matter, and you're worth it too. And so I would, to anyone that wants to follow in my footsteps, whether it's a piece of it, a variation of it, whether it's the military or being a lawyer or being a judge, is just really get down to the core of what it is that you want to accomplish, why it is that you want it, why it's important to you, and cancel out everything else.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we end?
I just want to say thank you to you for this opportunity. I have really enjoyed getting to know you, and I thought it was really kind of you to invite me to be here. It's really an honor that anybody would be interested in learning more about my story or anybody else's stories on the podcast, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity. So thank you for that. Thank you for making magnifying these voices.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. I think the audience is going to love this. You know, we've talked to a couple of different Latina judges, but you all come from such a different background. No story is the same.
No.
And they're all important. And it all goes to this.
Right.
You are unique. The perspective is important, no matter where you come from, how you got here, why you made these decisions.
Well, that's why I say Power Rangers, right? Like, they're all different. Different powers. Different background, but that's a simplified way of saying, the uniqueness is what makes us better. And we're in a place and time in history now where we're able to achieve that in a lot of different areas. And that's something to be really grateful and happy about. So,
well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.